Thinking like a millionaire doesn't start when the money hits your account. It starts long before that, when your bank balance is still tight, but your mindset is already playing a higher level. While most people wake up in survival mode, putting out fires and hoping for a miracle, those who actually build real wealth wake up in strategy mode, even when the numbers are still uncomfortable. They examine their daily routine, the way they feel, decide, and act, and realize that every choice they make today is shaping their financial pattern for the next few years. Before it's a numbers game, it's a mental game tied directly to entrepreneurship and long-term thinking. Maybe you've felt this on your own skin. You work hard, you push yourself, you try to keep your consistency, but the results just don't seem to follow. The truth is, without solid emotional control, real discipline, and deep self-confidence, any strategy falls apart at the first serious setback. That's where entrepreneurship and the right motivational quotes come in, not as cute phrases, but as mental triggers to break the scarcity autopilot that got installed in many people early on. When that switch flips, you stop asking, "Why doesn't this ever work for me?" and start asking, "What kind of mindset do I need to build so this finally works?" All throughout this content, the goal is to walk you through that path, showing how millionaires think about time, environment, decisions, people, and a long game, even before the first million shows up in the bank account. It's not about promising easy money. It's about revealing a way of thinking that very few people explain clearly and in a way you can actually use. If you're willing to stick around until the end, you might realize that the real turning point isn't how to make more money, but how to stop thinking small the same old way. And that's exactly where the journey starts to get interesting. Notice something. Since you were young, people told you that luck, talent, and effort explain everything, but no one really shared the real secret of millionaires. They're playing a different game, with completely different mental rules, while most people still think like the crowd and feel crushed by the lack of results. Anyone who dives into entrepreneurship and studies this pattern up close can see that the difference is in how they think, decide, and act every single day. That's where the right motivational quotes come in, used as reminders to protect your consistency, discipline, and emotional control, even when everything seems to be falling apart. Little by little, that mix builds a quiet self-confidence that sets the stage for results that, from the outside, will look like luck. Behind the scenes of anyone who actually builds wealth, there's a kind of inner conversation that almost nobody sees. Instead of constantly comparing themselves to others, these people compare themselves to who they were yesterday and ask, "What did I do today that really moved me closer to the results I want?" That completely changes how they use time and energy, because every action starts to feel like an investment, not just a random expense. From that point on, entrepreneurship stops being just making money and turns into a way of thinking, with consistency in small decisions and discipline in the background work that nobody claps for. That mindset naturally demands a new level of emotional control, because growing hurts, but staying stuck hurts even more. While a lot of people sit around waiting for motivation to fall from the sky, real wealth builders create their own internal fuel. They use motivational quotes not as magic spells, but as anchors that remind them why they started, especially on those days when all they want to do is throw in the towel. They know self-confidence doesn't appear out of thin air. It's built by honoring their own word, day after day, through consistency and discipline, even with zero applause. And it's interesting how, once this mental pattern locks in, the world starts responding differently, opening doors that didn't even seem to exist before. But that's only the first mental adjustment. Next comes an upgrade in how they handle problems, time, and environment that takes the whole game up a notch. When an average person hits a problem, they tend to blow up in the heat of the moment, ruin the day, and carry that weight around for weeks. Someone who's building real wealth learns to ask a simple question. Is this really going to matter 5 years from now? That question instantly cuts the drama and brings back emotional control, because it shows what truly matters and what's just a bruised ego. This filter protects your consistency and stops you from making impulsive choices that wreck relationships, opportunities, and even results in entrepreneurship. Over time, you figure out that maturity is choosing where to spend your energy, not winning every argument. That 5-year filter also helps separate emotion from strategy, especially in messy financial or professional seasons. Instead of thinking everything went wrong, a trained mind asks, what can I learn here that will give me more self-confidence down the road? That perspective shift turns every tough moment into raw material for building better results in the future. Discipline stops being just brute force and becomes the skill of doing what needs to be done even when the situation is far from perfect. That's how you quietly build a track record of small wins that, one day, look like sudden success to anyone watching from the outside. With time, this way of thinking makes you laugh at things that used to keep you up at night. You start to understand that it's not worth burning bridges, wrecking your health, or abandoning your projects over something you won't even remember in a few months. Instead of reacting in the heat of the moment, you respond with calm, lining up your internal motivational quotes with concrete actions that keep you focused on your bigger goals. That's how you build a life where entrepreneurship, consistency, and discipline walk side by side with increasingly solid emotional control. Once that filter is in place, the way you see patterns, systems, and opportunities starts to shift in a way most people don't notice right away. While most people only see problem after problem and run around putting out fires, those who think like millionaires start hunting for patterns. Instead of asking, why does this always happen to me? They ask, what's repeating here, and how do I build a system to fix it once and for all? That mindset is what separates pure effort from smart entrepreneurship, because it pulls you out of survival mode and into construction mode. From there, consistency stops being just working a lot and becomes working smart, with processes that run almost on autopilot. And that frees up mental space to focus on the kind of decisions that actually generate new results. Think about someone who's always late, scattered, constantly winging it. Usually, that person tries to fix each delay like it's an isolated problem instead of creating a simple system to plan their routine. Someone who starts thinking like an owner, like the CEO of their own life, sets patterns, set hours, checklists, routines that protect focus and emotional control. That's not overkill. It's strategy from someone who finally understands that discipline is what frees up time and energy to grow. In entrepreneurship, that means turning chaos into process and improvisation into method, step by step, day after day. Over time, a mind trained to look for patterns starts spotting opportunities where other people only see exhaustion. Instead of repeating the same mistake 10 times, this person tweaks the system once and enjoys the payoff over and over again. That's where self-confidence takes off, because you realize you don't need endless willpower anymore. You need structures that support your best behavior. Motivational quotes stop being just pretty words and turn into reminders to review your systems, not just your emotions. When this way of thinking really lands, a natural desire to play at a higher level shows up, like you're stepping up a whole new level in how you lead your life. People who are stuck only in the operational side react to whatever happens. People who think like millionaires step back and act as if they're already the advisor of their own life. Instead of diving into the drama, they zoom out and ask, if I had to guide someone else in this exact situation, what would I tell them to do right now? That simple shift pulls you out of victim mode and drops you straight into strategist mode. In entrepreneurship, this changes everything because it pushes your mind towards structural solutions instead of quick, emotional band-aids. That's when consistency and emotional control stop being theory and start showing up in real daily decisions. Thinking one level up also means admitting that every choice is building a system, for better or for worse. People who just react on impulse create an invisible system of confusion, conflict, and constant delays. Leaders start designing clear paths by combining discipline and a focus on long-term results. This mentality makes you question, does this fix just today, or does it improve my life for the next few years? In that moment, self-confidence grows not because everything works out perfectly, but because you know you're finally playing the right game. And as a bonus, motivational quotes stop being a comfort blanket and become reminders of your responsibility for your own story. Over time, this one level up mindset spills over into your relationships, money, and projects. Instead of fighting over anything and everything, you start choosing your battles, protecting your energy, and rearranging your environment to bring out your best, just like any good CEO would do for their company. In entrepreneurship, this translates into filtering partnerships, aligning expectations, and building structures that allow consistency even on chaotic days. The interesting part is that once this switch flips, you realize there's always another level available, not just in how you think, but in the quality of data and information you use to make your next moves. One of the biggest mindset shifts for anyone who thinks like a millionaire is learning to stop making decisions in the heat of the moment, especially around money, career, and relationships. Instead of just feeling like something is a good idea, this person starts looking for data, facts, patterns, and consequences before pulling the trigger. They understand that emotion is great for getting started, but terrible for choosing direction. In entrepreneurship, that means swapping impulsive decisions for simple, consistent analysis that protects your consistency and your results. And the more rational your analysis gets, the easier it becomes to keep your emotional control steady. This data-driven posture isn't just for giant companies. It's a lifestyle. Instead of feeling like they're growing, these people track it. They write down income, debt, habits, focus time, and small daily wins. Those numbers feed their self-confidence because they can see, in black and white, that their discipline is paying off even when the outside world doesn't look that different yet. Motivational quotes show up only as fuel to keep following the plan, not as excuses to ignore reality. Little by little, their emotions learn to respect what the data is saying. With time, this mix of tamed emotion and fact-based decision-making becomes a shield against dumb money moves and rush choices. In investing, for example, people who act on impulse tend to buy high and sell low, driven by fear and hype. Those who lean on data stick to their strategy, even when the market is screaming the opposite. Day to day, that same principle protects focus in entrepreneurship, preventing you from abandoning solid projects just because you had a bad day. Once this way of deciding becomes second nature, you start treating your time as an asset just as valuable as money, which upgrades the game yet again. Average people say, "I don't have time." People who think like millionaires translate that into, "I'm not prioritizing this right now." That simple shift reveals a deeper understanding. Time is the most valuable asset there is because money can be recovered, but an hour wasted never comes back. That's why these people start treating their calendar like a bank statement, checking where they're spending their hours. In entrepreneurship, that means cutting commitments that don't drive results and protecting blocks of deep focus to build something meaningful. Of course, that takes consistency, discipline, and a lot of emotional control to say no without guilt. Treating time like capital also changes how you choose jobs, clients, and projects. Instead of accepting anything because it pays, the millionaire mindset asks, does this multiply my knowledge, my network, or my cash flow in the coming years? When the answer is no, the instinct is to negotiate, delegate, or simply decline, even if that looks strange to someone who only thinks about this month's bills. This posture reinforces self-confidence because you can feel that you're no longer a hostage to other people's emergencies. In that process, motivational quotes become daily reminders that every careless yes is a silent no to your own dreams. With time, you notice that managing your time well improves not just your money, but also your energy, health, and relationships. You start investing hours into learning, building high-quality connections, and practicing strategic rest, understanding that your mind and body are your main high-performance tools. That directly impacts entrepreneurship because a clearer, rested mind sees opportunities that constant exhaustion would never notice. And once you start treating time like capital, it becomes almost impossible not to look at the environment where you're spending it and ask whether the people and places around you are helping or draining that rare asset. Anyone who thinks like a millionaire understands something many people ignore. You can't have a wealth mindset while living full-time in a scarcity environment. The place you work, the content you consume, the conversations you repeat every day, all of that shapes how you think, often without you realizing it. Slowly, Your environment either pulls you up or drags you down. There's not much middle ground. In entrepreneurship, this is crucial because ideas, consistency, and self-confidence die quickly in spaces full of gossip, chaos, and lack of vision. That's why anyone chasing real results starts by adjusting the stage where life happens. Taking care of your environment isn't overreacting. It's a strategy to protect your energy and focus. A clean desk, a quiet study corner, people talking about projects instead of only problems. All of that reinforces discipline and emotional control in ways that almost feel invisible. It's like every detail of your physical and digital space is saying, you're here to grow, not to sabotage yourself. Over time, this becomes a natural filter. You drift away from draining places and conversations and move toward contexts that feed your entrepreneurship. Then even your motivational quotes seem to hit harder because your whole environment is pushing in the same direction. That awareness leads to a tough but powerful question. Does my current environment match the life I say I want? People who think like millionaires look at their home, work, social media, and even their idea of fun through that lens. If the answer is no, a quiet renovation starts. Less distraction, more stimulation, fewer complainers, more builders. That naturally prepares the ground for the next step, which is looking not just at the environment as a whole, but specifically at the closest people, the ones who most influence your thoughts, choices, and results. There's a well-known idea that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and anyone with a millionaire mindset takes that very seriously. It's not mysticism, it's behavior. When you spend a lot of time with someone, your habits, beliefs, and decisions start to look alike. If your circle spends all day complaining, mocking entrepreneurship, and treating money like a taboo, that slowly eats away at your self-confidence and quietly sabotages your consistency. On the other hand, when your circle debates ideas, projects, and growth, it becomes almost impossible not to level up your standard of results. Looking at those 5 people is almost like looking into a mirror that shows your future. Do the people around you encourage your plans or make fun of them? Do they celebrate your progress or try to pull you back into the comfort zone? That kind of influence hits your emotional control directly because one nasty comment at the wrong time can be enough to make someone abandon a whole project. That's why anyone who takes discipline and entrepreneurship seriously starts being more selective. It's not about finding perfect people. It's about walking with people who are also trying to grow. In that context, motivational quotes stop being cringe and turn into shared fuel for people playing the same game. At some point, this reflection goes even deeper. It's not just who's close, it's who do you allow to influence your choices. Friends, family, mentors, and even the profiles you follow on social media all count. Once you see that anyone who thinks like a millionaire starts deliberately building an invisible team that reinforces their consistency, discipline, and self-confidence. Sometimes that even means taking a step back from people you love, not out of arrogance, but out of long-term vision. That's usually when you realize it's time to adjust not only the people around you, but also your own automatic thoughts, opening space for a new kind of internal conversation about wealth and the future. The big difference between someone who thinks like a millionaire and someone who's constantly putting out fires is the time horizon. While most people chase instant reward, this mindset plays years ahead, understanding that wealth is the result of decisions repeated with consistency, not one lucky move. That changes everything in entrepreneurship. Instead of jumping from idea to idea, you commit to building something that can stand the test of time, even if the early days feel slow. Discipline stops feeling like punishment and becomes the tool that makes sure results show up when they're supposed to. Thinking long-term is also an act of self-confidence. It's like telling yourself, I trust my ability so much that I'm willing to plant today what I'll only harvest years from now. That posture demands a different level of emotional control because the whole world is screaming for instant gratification. In that context, motivational quotes work as daily reminders that delaying a little pleasure now can mean real freedom later. Anyone who internalizes this starts looking at expenses, time, and energy as investments, always asking, does this move me closer to or further away from the future I want? Over time, this long-term mindset connects with everything you've built so far. Your systems, your environment, your circle, your use of time, and your database decisions. You realize it's not just about making more money, but about becoming the kind of person who can hold on to it without self-sabotaging. That creates such a strong sense of direction that even your stumbles stop being reasons to quit and turn into part of the process. When that vision matures, it becomes obvious that one last piece is missing, turning all these ideas into a real commitment to your own change, almost like an internal pact to never go back to the old way of thinking. At some point along the way, anyone who thinks like a millionaire realizes this isn't just content anymore. It's a life decision. Looking back, you can see a pattern. Whenever you use consistency, discipline, and emotional control, the results came. Whenever you acted on impulse, you paid the price later. You understand you don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be committed to this new way of thinking. And that commitment isn't to money itself, but to your own evolution, to the version of you that chooses entrepreneurship as a path to freedom, not just survival. 5. The real turning point happens when you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as the main character in your own game. Instead of repeating, "This won't work," you start asking, "What can I learn, fix, or build to make this work?" That shift feeds a different kind of self-confidence, one that doesn't depend on other people's compliments and is rooted in your own ability to show up every day, even in silence. Motivational quotes stop being momentary hype and become internal codes, commands that remind you what truly matters when exhaustion hits. Little by little, the fear of failing gets replaced by a bigger fear, the fear of not even trying. From that point on, everything discussed so far, thinking one level up, using the time filter, focusing on patterns, deciding with data, treating time and environment like capital, and choosing your people wisely, merges into one big system working in your favor. It's like your mind stops playing against you and finally joins the same team as your dreams. You start asking yourself daily, what would someone with a millionaire mindset do in this exact situation today? And as you answer with actions instead of just good intentions, you begin to notice concrete signs of change. Without even realizing it, you're already training your brain for the next step of this journey, where you won't just think differently, but also communicate, attract, and create opportunities on a whole new level. Now that you've seen how this mindset shift works in real life, the question is, what are you going to do with it? It's no use just thinking it sounds great, nodding along, and then living exactly the same way tomorrow. Every idea you've heard here only gains power when it turns into action, when it shows up in your routine, in the way you handle money, your time, your emotions, and your entrepreneurship. That's when consistency, discipline, and emotional control stop being nice words and become the foundation of your new results. So take a hard look at your life today and answer honestly. What's the first small but real adjustment you can make before the day is over? Start tracking your spending. Block out 1 hour a day to build something of your own. Step away from a conversation that always drags you down. What belief about money and success are you still holding on to, even though you know it keeps you stuck? And if you stay exactly as you are for the next 5 years, are you really willing to live with that same reality? Be brutally honest with yourself, even if it stings a little right now. That discomfort is the push many people need to finally change direction. If this content shifted your perspective even a little, don't just let it fade. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you can keep learning, upgrading your mindset, and strengthening this new version of you that thinks big long before seeing big results. The goal here isn't to sell you a fantasy. It's to walk beside you so your self-confidence, your internal motivational quotes, and your daily actions finally start working on your side. Because whether you like it or not, the game is already on. The only question is whether you'll keep playing on autopilot or finally choose to think and act like someone who's intentionally building their first million.